Good evening, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about an update from World of Tanks. And sorry if I didn't done any videos, but now I have a job and I have to relocate because of this. So now I'm I live alone now, and I had to do some stuff. And today we are going to talk about the Italian tank destroyers that Wargaming is planning to introduce in the game. I'm gonna let you see before here because the models are absolutely fantastic. And after that, we are going to analyze a little bit more deeper in the game. So, guys, the first one is the Semovente M41. In Italian, Semovente M41. What is this tank? What is this tank? This tank is a tier 5 tank destroyer that is very similar to the German one, the Stag, that is tier 5 German tank destroyer. What does this tank have to offer? This tank has a pretty nice gun traverse limits, a pretty damn good reload for like 110, and different guns here. You will start with this one, that is the stock one, of course, that has 92mm penetration, that isn't bad for a tier 5, 112, and of course 127. Not the greatest thing about this tank is the gun. It has a great reload but doesn't have the greatest accuracy, and you have 8 degree of gun depression, so the gun can lower up by 8 degree. And the concealment is pretty good, not bad. The mobility is kinda normal, not very bad, and the armor is kinda paper. So of course this tank is like a paper Italian tank destroyer. The second one is the Bassotto. That this isn't similar to the German tank because this tank has other things that the German doesn't, and it's a choice between two guns that are the 105 turbo gun millimeter, 115/25, that is a turbo gun that is very similar to the one that we already have on the Polish, that has very good hit penetration of 230mm. That is very good, and there's some HE. Those HE are pretty nice, depend 105. And this is the dub gun, that is 440 and 360 with hit shells. Remember that hit shells, of course, are going to cost you a lot because this is the premium ammunition. The second gun, I think the best one, is the 112/40. That is this giant beast here. This giant beast here, it's a bit inaccurate. It is kind of the same DPM as the tier 5, but has 360 alpha damage with 175mm of penetration and 250 with 8 shells. Why I prefer this gun respect the other? Because of course this gun has let me just do this very quick comparison, because of course this comparison will help us a lot, will help us to choose which gun we have to mount on our tank destroyer. This gun has better accuracy, worse gun traverse, worse gun depression, but it has, yeah, because those are HE, sorry guys, those are HE, and it has not a worse DPM, but it is much more accurate, and of course it has better shell velocity. So for doing your tank destroyer work, this is much better because this shell velocity is 330, so it's very slow. And remember that you allow 75mm of penetration of armor. So I want to say something very quickly. Okay. So the Bassotto is actually a pretty nice tier 6 tank destroyer that has this choice between these two guns, and of course I will suggest this one because it's more accurate. No, isn't that accurate, but it's more accurate. deals 100 damage less, and it has less DPM, but it will eat your enemy and you will eat it very hard. This is the first armored Italian tank destroyer. How this tank destroyer starts? This tank destroyer starts, of course, with a stock turret and a stock gun. This turret is kinda, it's it doesn't resemble the gameplays of these duos. And this turret, of course, is of course less armor because you have a 175 here, 175 here. We're going to see the armor layout later on. And of course, you have this big cupola that doesn't help you when you're going hold down. But when you start to unlock the guns, you know that these aren't autoloaders. These are just normal guns with normal shell, and those aren't autoloaders. When you mount the new turret and of course you mount the new gun, you will see that this new gun is autoloader. But what these autoloaders have, they have very long intro clip time. They have 7 seconds and you have 3 shells of 320. So you can do 960 damage in like 21 seconds. That's, yeah, 21 seconds is kinda high to be honest. And I'm going to let you see something on TXG that isn't true. Of course, you have smaller cupolas, and of course a more angled turret, and you have this very good armor in the upper hull, in the lower plate, and on the turret. This tank is very good armor. It can stand even some tier 8 premium shells. And it's very damn good armor. But this tank has a bit of problems in armor, and I will let you see on tank GG. Here we have our Semovente. It doesn't have the complete name. I think it's Semovente CC56, but it doesn't have the complete name. Yeah, that triggers me. Of course, here you have 175mm of penetration, and the lower plate is kind of penetrable, but when it angles, it isn't anymore. They are like 186, depends which gun you will carry. But with APCR, you can gaze through there very easily. The problem is that the upper plate is very difficult to penetrate, and even the turret is very difficult to penetrate for these surface. And this isn't a weak spot. This is fake. The thing is that this turret is very good angled, instead of like the tier 7 turret that has less armor, and when you're going to hold down you will actually expose this weak point. Let me just carry normal shells. Yeah, you have 180mm, so much worse turret there. But you have two major weak points that are this part of the tank and this part. When you're going to hold down, you will basically cover them and you will never cannot be penetrated anymore. Let me just look at it. Let me just show you even against a tier 8 tank destroyer. Maybe this one doesn't have the best penetration. Yeah, it penetrates, but it's very hard to penetrate right there. Let me show you, for example, a heavy tank. Maybe that has 250mm penetration. It didn't change. 250. 250 is still hard. Still damn hard to penetrate. Even with a tier 8 in hold down position. So those tanks are very damn good armored. As you see, it doesn't penetrate. The major flaws of this tank are two. When you're going in face hug, shoot here. In this weak side, or the cupolas, of course. And when this doesn't have the great side scraping opportunities like maybe others. So when you're going actually angled, yeah, you don't have any right to angle. You have just to stay still. But if you stay still, you expose the lower glaces, and doesn't help you. But when you're angled, as soon as you angle, you're penetrable here. Let me just show you in the visual. In the picture, sorry. You're penetrable on the track when even you angle a little. you're penetrable. Yeah, that's it. Penetrable. Let me just pick up maybe at tier 7. Iha Iha will easily penetrate you there. Yeah, it has a pretty good penetration. And of course, when you stay still, it has 70% penetrator. Let me just pick up an AS, of course. An AS you see has very low chance of penetration there, but as soon as you angle, it will penetrate you. If you angle more, it will penetrate you. Even on the side, it's kinda easy. If you angle too much, you can be penetrated. So this tank is only all down, not very symmetrical, and isn't even facehugger, because when you go here, caliber superior to 90 millimeters with straight plane here, and when you angle, okay, you angle, and you're on plane, you're penetrable here. Even maybe with some HE luck, they will penetrate there. Because this is all 40-20 millimeters of armor. So pay attention when you will play this tank. But guys, what you what Wargaming is doing, adding such a very good armor tank. The problem is that this tank doesn't have the best accuracy at all. So I try out this setup. You could do other changes. Maybe you can just change the vents for the rotation device or for the turbo. That could help you actually to go faster, because this tank goes only 31 kilometers per hour and doesn't have the greatest acceleration here. The reload is kind of low here for the single shot, but even this tank doesn't penetrate that lot. This tank has kind of not high penetration values here, 175 and 212. With 175, it's kind of normal for a heavy tank, so you have like heavy tank penetration with a super heavy tank armor. I put the improved aiming because of this. Let me just show you what happens if I took out my improved aiming. 0.49 0.49 dispersion, and that's kind of bad. Yeah, you could actually put turbo in it, but I honestly go up for the improved aiming. I could put maybe the improved rotation mechanism, but for me it doesn't help a lot, because when you play the Bassotto or an Italian medium, you put the vent, the stabilizer, and the improved thing. And of course, it helps a lot. But when you put only that one, of course, it improves your gun transfer speed, but doesn't decrease a lot the moving dispersion. That in this tank, it's kind of high when you're moving, but not high when you're traversing. So even when you turn the turret, it's not that high. But when you're moving forward, it's very high. So you don't actually need the improved rotation mechanism on this tank. Let's pass on the tier 8. The tier 8 is where the Italian tank destroyers are going to shine. This tank for me has like two options of guns that you will be offered. You will offer a 120mm gun. Let's mount it. A big 120mm gun with 226mm penetration, but with a stunning 300mm of penetration with each shells and 120 with HE. That is 400, so you will basically do 1200 like in 21 seconds. And you have 3 shots of them and 22 seconds of reload. But this gun, of course, isn't as inaccurate as the tier 7, but it's kind of inaccurate. Remember that this tank, let's pass because I wanted to see even the soft stats. It's much more accurate, but basically you have 0-4 with the normal thing, without anything. You have basically 0-4. Of course, improves 0-2 are improved, of course, with the spaghetti, and 0-0-2 of the improved making, and 0-0-1 improved ventilation. So if you took out basically those, you basically kill your dispersion. That's it. That's why I put improved aiming, because I don't like inaccurate things. And of course, those are heavy tanks. You always say those are heavy tanks. Yeah, they are heavy tanks. They are releasing Italian heavy tanks. But the problem is that when you're moving, your dispersion is so bad, and you don't have the stabilizer. So when I'm going there in a hold down, I really like to have like the closest circle as possible to actually hit something, because this tank actually have really long intraclip load. And you could choose the 105mm that I was putting on that has 5 seconds of intraclip, but very low penetration, 220, 242. So I'd suggest you to research this gun and go down and research. This one, yeah, this one is pretty powerful because it delivers more shots and is more accurate. This one has 0.42 and this one has 0.36. So if you can actually put this gun here, you have like 0.44 here. I could reach a decent amount of accuracy here. We have 0.31. This is the lowest on the Italian tank destroyers. So you could actually use this one that is more accurate, deals less damage, and has better intraclip load, or you could use the 120 that is the gigantic alpha. Of course, here the live, I want to actually let you see the stock turret. What is stock turret is 256, so basically paper when you're not as paper as stock tanks are, but yeah, not as the classic Italian tank destroyer. So even the turret, you could actually use the stock one if you couldn't like grab the guns, like, because you need like, yeah, you could actually do the stock turret with the 105 and it will be fine because you have a nice gun. Is this one? Yeah, nice gun, nice turret armor, because this is pretty damn thick, and you could go down and just stay there. The problem is that when you're willing count, even when you encounter a tier 9, for example, like, of course Yak Tiger will easily penetrate you. Like, just for the sake of the meme, for the Yak Tiger you have basically paper. But when you encounter a tank like, maybe let's do an example. I want to do just an example. The AFS1 that has very good penetration isn't that bad. Yeah, you are bit penetrated, but this has 340 each shell penetration. And let's see a concept 1B cannot penetrate you basically. And the thing is that it really changed view when you're like upgrading. Because when you're upgrading, yeah, you have like 320. With the stock turret, you have like 320, 300, here you have 360. So actually the turret doesn't actually change lots of the armor of the tank. Instead, when you're grabbing the stock turret, you're much more penetrated here in the cheeks. This is the stock turret, as you see, it's a bit more sloped. Respect the full turret. That you will of course grab the full turret to actually grab the 120. But look at it. Look at this. This is more thinner respect the other. Yeah, you have like 260mm of stock armor, and here you have 230. But these 260 aren't angled. They are just like there, standing there, and kinda easy for like a tier 9 to be penetrated. Even for a tier 8. If we actually grab maybe a tier 8 tank destroyer, let me go the Scorpion G, for example. It doesn't have like lots of troubles to penetrate you. Of course, it can bounce, but not can bounce that much. Let me grab the AMX. I think this has 325. Straight batter. Let me just check with the stock turret. It's very similar. Very, very similar. The Scorpion G, I think that is a bit harder, not that much harder, as you may expect. Yeah, pretty similar. Very pretty similar. Of course, here it's penetrable, and you have this weak point, but no, that doesn't change lots. Of course, I will suggest you to grab the full turret, but if you don't grab it, it's not. It's for me. It's not like the worst problems in the world if you don't grab the full turret. You know what I mean. So another thing is the hull. The hull on this, the hull on this is actually pretty penetrable. It's not that it's super hard damn hull. It's pretty penetrable. If you, M56 has like 200, 290 millimeters of penetration, you can penetrate the hull. Of course, when the angles, yeah, you have the same problem as the Tier 7. The part of that is this part is angled, but here the hull is penetrable, and you don't have actually the problem of the upper grade because this is 50 millimeters. Of course, if you grab the Caliban, you will penetrate it, but that's another story. If with each shells, your hull is just basically paper. So the Tier 8 is good, but is not. It is very good armor, but it doesn't have like the super armor that the Tier 7 had, because Tier 9s are going to penetrate you very easily. I'm going now. This is the strangest one. That is the Controcarro 1 Mark II. That is the Tier 9 Italian TDs. Here we have an improvements of side armor. From 60 we pass to 70, and it will change a lot. Because 10 millimeters when they're angled, it changes a lot. But the Controcarro Mark I has another issue. And we have another changes here. If you look the gun, usually those guns were like 3 shells, 2 shells. This has 4 shells of 490. You can basically clip and you can basically clip a tier 9 heavy tank with this gun. Even the penetration isn't that bad, like 255 and 325 each shells, and of course you will see the problem of this one. The problem of this one is that it doesn't have the greatest armor for being like a tier 9. You have 340 here, if you're 311 here, but if you compare, for example, and I think like AF is one that is very used, it can penetrate you 46% of chance. That is was kind of similar to the T8, to be honest. And don't even talk about the hull. The hull is straight penetrable, and even this part is 45 millimeters. So what this means? This means that only 30 millimeters can penetrate you there. So if you grab a tank with a 150, the first one that makes in mind is the E100. When you're doing phase hug, you can penetrate here very easily. When you're doing phase hug, even when you're doing phase hug, this tank is very paper. It's very fragile when you're doing phase hug. It doesn't have cupola. Yeah, like it's very small. But when you're doing phase hug, this tank is kind of fragile. So you have to use the tier 9 as a hold down tank, period, every single day. Of course, it's kind of harder to penetrate, but this is how it is. If a Controcarro angles, same problem as not as the others, but you can penetrate here. You can penetrate through here, and the thing is that this one has better side armor respect the others. So pay attention here. And another thing that the Controcarro doesn't have is accuracy. He doesn't know what accuracy is. That is 0.36, but if I took out everything, it's 0.4. That is kind of bad. But the tank itself is good. Isn't a bad tank, but is a good tank. The problem is that you have 8 seconds of intro clip. That is kind of high, to be honest. But if you can go on a race line on tier 9 when you have T7s against, you can just basically kill two tier 7s with one clip. And this is the tier 9, a very good tier 9 heavy tank, because it's a heavy tank. And yeah, it's a very good tank. And talk about the tier 10 now. Tier 10 has another improvement, as 75mm of side armor, and of course the plate frontal is grows from 290 from 300, but with better sloping. With a much better sloping. Even here it was sloped normally, and this one it was sloped like not normally. And this tank is a powerhouse. This tank is very strong. It isn't an E3 for me because E3 has a different playstyle, similar playstyle, but you know the E3 has like very high penetration, single shot, very high alpha damage, and like super good armor. The Controcarro Minotauro, the Minotauro, it has like the clip. Yeah, you can do higher damage respect the E3, but E3 can go standard, shoot and go back. Yeah, this tank doesn't have any problems to expose the of course the frontal turret, but the thing is that sometimes Yagerus with its shells can penetrate you, and that's bad because if he go there, shoots and go back, you stay there, pump up shot that maybe misses or maybe doesn't penetrate because this tank gun isn't the greatest gun in the game, and you have to go out and shoot another one. That is what this tank is. And the thing is that for releasing all your shells, you need lots of time. Lots of time. 8 times 5, you need like 40 seconds to release all your shells. One maybe misses, one maybe doesn't penetrate. That's the problem. But the penetration isn't bad, 265 and the 340 with each shells. It is like E100 penetration values, not with AP, but with it. They nerfed it because you see here, they nerfed it because it was 350. They nerfed it, got 6. They nerfed it. It was 345, and look, 345 doesn't stand anything. 345 against this gun. Let me just check. This 329, and you can't do anything. This is super good hold down tank that you can't basically hurt when you go hold down. The only thing that hurts this tank is the Jaggeru. If he shoots you here, you're going hold down. It can penetrate you here, or it can penetrate in these weak cupolas right there, in these like weak parts of the tank. That is like 190. But even on the other cupola, it doesn't do anything. Like it's 440. You can penetrate here and here. The thing is that this tank, yeah, it's good when it's like hold down position, but we have some other good tank destroyer for hold down position. Let me just bring out. Maybe later, some things you may probably know about. The Badger is another exceptional hold down tank that has practically the same penetration values, more with AP, and has higher DPM. And look how it stands the Yagarus. It doesn't feel the same, but when you think this tank has 4k DPM and it can bounce practically anything apart the Yagaru. And let me just maybe give up another. Not heavy things. Sorry guys, not heavy things. It can bounce practically anything apart of like Yagarus. But even here, if I this one is harder, but the Badger shoots you 3 times and kills you. So if you're going to hold 1v1 Badger against Minotauro in a Richland, Badger will basically kill you very quickly because Badger, it has low penetration, but as soon as you expose, Badger can shoot you twice because even the reload on the Badger, it's lower respect the intro clip of this. And let's make another example that, of course, you know it. That is the E3 that I talk about firstly. It's a very good downer too. It doesn't have any problem to expose himself. It isn't shy. Yeah, of course, it is a bit of problems to actually resist its shells from its German brother, that is the Jagerl. But like the E3, it's very good armored, and we know it, and no one said anything about it. And E3 is still very good tank destroyer. So that the thing is that Controcarro 3 Minotauro It isn't. It is. It is very good, but for me, it isn't overpowered. But you know why? Because if we are going to do a comparison between these three tank destroyer, powerful tank destroyers, the thing is that the Minotauro, it is only bit slightly better armor, slightly respect the other twos, but look the guns. Yeah, it has 2,890 of DPM, but if you bounce a shot, of course it isn't like that. Of course, it's same like this, but you have to wait 21 seconds, 23 seconds to reload the whole clip, and basically they penetrate me. They even penetrate more. This is for like 345. It is the old penetration, but the E3 penetrates 360, 370, and the budget penetrates 320. The budget has even higher DPM, respect to Minotauro. And yeah, Minotauro can actually shoot you twice with the E3, but you know what? E3 can. You can trade off an E3, but you can't trade off a budget. And another problem is that E3 has a 155 and the budget in the caliber of was 120, but the shells with it shells a bit fast. Let me see if they nerfed it. No, they didn't. So you have very fast it shells that penetrates 340. I really like the nerf the it shell penetration. And another thing that isn't good, of course, in both is the moving dispersion. That you have good moving dispersion here. You have good here, but you have bad dispersion. The thing that doesn't make me say that this thing is OP is that you don't have the greatest penetration, and neither you have the greatest dispersion. So the gun isn't actually that great, but this tank will be very fucking annoying when you counter it, when you have to fight against. Because we talk about heavy tanks. Let me see if they nerf the dispersion here. 046. Let me just take out a little bit. Yeah, of course, the equipments for me are the same, so I'm not going to say nothing else about the equipments, because for me those are the most equipments on the tank. It was 0.4, and the armor is still 300. Let me just check if here it has still 300. So the armor is basically the same. And you reload 23 seconds. Not more, 21. Yeah, but 23 is still here. Of course, the mobility is 30 kilometers per hour. Here it was like 46. So you even move fast like a budget or any free with a turbo. And yeah, you have a good armor. The armor is great. And you have the same 8 points. You have better you don't even have better truck. And that is the Minotauro. Minotauro is a very good tier 10 tank destroyer that basically plays like a heavy tank. But in my opinion, maybe lots of people don't agree with me, this tank isn't as OP as we think of. This tank will be very annoying to fight against. It will be very annoying because this tank has super good armor. But when you have 330 millimeters of penetration on a tank destroyer, when you have like choices like the Yageru that has 420, or for example the E3 that has 375, or like the 268 version 4 that is like 360, or like the 268 that has like 395 penetration. Or maybe let me just. I don't think that we have any more good number tank destroyers. Yeah, the Badger 320. That is what makes me saying, is that tank really that OP that we think? Because I know that this will be another great hold down tank. I know that it will be the great hold down tank, but it really doesn't have the firepower to actually maybe penetrate another hold down tank. For example, maybe a chieftain, a rosette, or a heavy tank that does have very good turret armors that even the free struggles. Imagine the Minotauro. Minotauro will never penetrate them, and with 0-4 accuracy. If you don't count, of course, if you don't have the super skill. I even have a super skill Fury here that actually improves me, helps me a lot to actually decrease lots of those. But there's 0.42 against tanks like the E3 and the Badger, they're like 0.29, 0.45, with practically the same penetration of those. Imagine that. Your gun will never work as an E3 and a Badger. Those tanks have better guns, they have kinda similar armor. I'm not saying that the Minotauro isn't annoying, because it is damn annoying, because it has super good armor, very super good armor. Maybe they will nerf it, I don't know. Maybe in the Colas. But I don't think so because this is the third iteration. Maybe they just nerfed the cupolas, I don't know. Because I didn't play it. I played when it was first and I played with the second, but I didn't play the third one. And this is the Minotauro. Conclusions about the Italian tank destroyers. For me, Italian tank destroyers are annoying, very annoying, but calling them overpowered, for me, it's a bit too much. But not because those aren't strong tanks, those indeed are strong tanks. But the problem is that we already have lots of overpowered, very good armored turret tanks. For example, the Kramban. I know the Kramban doesn't have the same penetration as the Minotauro and doesn't say Alpha, but it has the strongest turret in the game. We even like tanks like the Super Conqueror that has a very good turret armor, the E3, the C705A, practically any Russians here that have very good turret armors. Maybe I didn't pick up the VZ that has very good turret armor, the VZ here. And to not even talk about clan war tanks, for example the VK72 that I have here, but even the Chieftain, the 279. The thing is that this tank has a power creeped armor, because you could trade off the armor that it has for something else. Even a 60 TP has a very good turret armor, but no one calls them OP. This is the first scary thing about, because this is a new tank and no one fought against it, and yeah, it is a very good armored, very good armored. But don't forget this tank gun actually sucks a lot. Doesn't have accuracy, it has alpha, but not as a tank destroyer would have. Doesn't have penetration. The horrible 8 seconds of intro clip will make you even tradable with some tanks that we rolled in last time. And of course you carry only 40 shells that there are more with the free, but the free, guess what, carry the double off, right? Not the double, but a third more, 1/3 more. And even moving Arcos isn't the good, and the tank traverse isn't good. Is it good? Those are good, sorry, those are good. And is that the Minotauro? It is a very good Italian tank destroyer, but for me isn't, because you can be penetrated by Yaguru, and we didn't even talk about on a facehug, because on a facehug this tank changes completely. On a facehug, when you have maybe not when you're like having a heavy tank, for example. Let me just pick up the E100, for example. The lucky thing of the E100 is that the E100 is very high. The E100 is very high, can penetrate your gear, and of course the E100 will actually kill you because you don't have the thing to fight in the back. You don't have the HP, and if you bounce a shot, you're basically dead. And E100 will very difficultly bounce your shot because you can penetrate it free here. For example, even the new buffed AMX can penetrate you here very easily. And this tank, trust me, has a very, very funny gun that you have. Of course, the IS-7 won't penetrate you, but would like penetrating IS-7 on a hold down position with your Minotauro. Even the Super Conqueror, when, of course, they won't penetrate you here, but if they're going to hold face hug against you, or maybe they go a bit higher, they will actually penetrate you through here, that and through here if they can. And of course, when you're angled, you will expose this little bit of problem here, but it's very difficult to go there. Very, very difficult. This tank can be achievable only with high penetration HE. In the back, no, it is very achievable in the back. So, this is my conclusion. The Minotauro is very annoying, but this isn't an OP tank. This is an annoying tank like the Torvan. Do you remember the Torvan? That it is the tier 8 heavy tank from Sweden. That it has a nice gun, very bad accuracy, but the fucking impenetrable turret makes this tank very difficult to penetrate. But no one plays the Torvan. Why? Because the Torvan is fucking boring, to be honest. And I think maybe not the same thing. Minotauro will be played more because it has a very good clip. But Minotauro has only armor. If you compare respect the other tank destroyer, this tank has only armor. You think that a tank destroyer doesn't need a lot? It needs armor. But when you sacrifice your armor, when you're gone to the armor, that is another part of the story of the tank. So conclusions. I really like them because they are Italian. I'm Italian, and I really like new Italian things. But for me, those aren't overpowered. So, guys, if you enjoyed the video, put a like. If you don't, put a dislike. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye, guys.